Okay. Time to talk about water. Anybody see some of the latest Signal articles on, as a matter of fact, there was one today, and in it had some estimates of water usage from CLWA. And of course, when they talk about water usage, so that it makes it less, makes it harder for you to understand what they're talking about, they talk about it in acre feet instead of gallons. And I've never bought an acre feet pail, but I have bought a 5-gallon pail. Anyway, an acre foot is 325,000 gallons. And when I multiply it out, what they said the total water consumption was in the valley, it came out to just about 60 million gallons a day, the same number that the sanitation district has been giving us. And the output of the sanitation district into the river is 19.5, close enough to 20 million gallons a day for horseshoes, hand grenades, and government work. So it's pretty much 3 to 1 in the way we do business now. 2/3 of our water goes on landscaping, 1/3 of our water goes into the recycling center from our houses. And lo and behold, because we live here in a desert, yeah. No, in 2011, all of a sudden, it says 2001, but it was 2011, we were in a drought. Surprise. Happens all the time. And we've gone through these cycles. If you've lived here long enough, we go through these cycles quite regularly. And so last year, in an effort to mitigate the problem, the governor actually wrote an executive order last year. This one he wrote this year was not the first one he wrote. He wrote one last year. And when he wrote that, he said, you're going to conserve 20%. Voluntarily, we're going to put programs in place to save 20% of the water. If you remember, he talked about it from a standpoint of no watering driveways, no washing your car with an open hose, and all of those different things that they talked about at that time, and included in don't over-irrigate, no recycling fountains, or no fountains that don't recycle their water. And so what CLWA and the rest of the water retailers did was they said, okay, we're going to cut back. It's kind of like we did in the past drought, and you can water 3 times a week in the summer and twice a week in the winter, and we'll see exactly how that works. That's what we've been doing. But here we are, we're a year later, we're still in a drought, so the governor comes out with a new executive order because he's going to fix the problem. And so he comes up with the first mandatory statewide water reduction program the state has ever seen. And he did it because, he said, we have a record low snowpack. There's no end in the drought in sight. Probably the only person that knows whether the drought's going to continue is a psychic, and they're not telling us. And he made big emphasis that we're going to save, we need to save every drop of water. As Californians, we must pull together and save water in every possible way, right? Well, what he wanted us to do, his every possible way, means that all urban water users are going to have to save water. Nobody else, but urban water users. And the only urban water users that have to comply with these rules are people that are not on a well, which kind of leads me to questions about the discussion CLWA has been having with us in the fact that they're claiming that 50% of our water is well water. It shouldn't be a part of this effort. So what he's saying is we're going to do a 25% reduction in potable water urban water use, and compared to 2013. He wants 25% less. And he wants you to replace, or us, to replace 50 million square feet of lawns and ornamental turf with drought-tolerant plants. Of course, they're not going to help you financially. You just get to do it all by yourself. And they're going to place restrictions on lots of places that use lots of water, like school campuses, golf courses, cemeteries, and they have to immediately reduce their potable water use. And this one I was really kind of chuckled when I saw it, because it says, prohibited irrigation of potable water on ornamental turf on the public street medians. Now, here in Santa Clarita, when we formed the standard landscape median district number 1 in 2008, the 2008-1 median district, and we were told that that's what we're going to do. We're going to put in standard medians with drought-tolerant plants. We're going to remove all the turf. And so far, we've been putting in more medians, but we haven't removed any turf. So now it's going to be an issue of just how serious is the state about us not watering those medians that have turf. And according to Mr. Striplin last night, there's 4 miles of medians with turf in them that would be impacted. And he wanted to prohibit the irrigation with potable water of newly constructed homes and buildings that's not delivered by drip or microspray systems. So really, it's not much of a change there, because it's just a different kind of sprinkler head to use a microspray system than the system that you're using. And you know what? People reacted to this, and I saw all kinds of stuff on social media about how, oh my God, we got to do this, otherwise we're not going to be able to take a shower. You know, we got to do this because we're going to save the world. And the question is, exactly how much does this really do? Are we really going to save ourselves by what the governor wants us to do? So I went out and I started looking at the numbers. You know me. I go out and I start crunching data and using my calculator. And I found that California's total water use is 20% urban and 80% agricultural. And also I was reading articles from the agricultural users. They're not going to conserve. They have no intention of conserving. And they're saying, you know what, yeah, there's a drought, but we're still making a lot of money, so we'll wait for the drought to be over. And we're not going to change what we're doing. We're not going to change our methodologies. We're going to just keep on going. So realizing that 25% of urban water use, if we conserve 25%, we're really only conserving 5% of the total potable water consumed in the state. So let me put that into perspective for you. Let's suppose we had enough water to last 1 year. 1 year. And we all, urban users, we all save 25% of what we use. You know how much more water we would have after that year is over? 18 days. So it's not a very effective plan if we're really talking about solving the problem of the drought. So you got to figure out what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Why are we telling urban users they can't use water, but they're not telling that to agriculture industries? So what you got to do is you got to follow the money. Isn't that always the way you do it? Follow the money trail. And according to the USDA National Agriculture Statistics Service for California, in 2013, agriculture represented $44.7 billion in value. And as I recall, the governor said that's 2% of our economy. Right? 2% of our economy is $44 billion. And they also went down and listed all the different products that are used that make up this $43 billion. And I found that the highest water use product was number 3, almonds. Almonds are the highest product. They consume 10% of all the water used on agriculture, but they also represent $4.3 billion in revenue. So there's big money in this. And in 2013, there was 940,000 acres cultivated in almonds in California. These numbers, as we go through these numbers get big. They're huge. It's hard to conceive what they all are. And each acre of almonds uses 3 to 4 acre feet every year. 3 to 4 acre feet. So 1 acre foot, approximately 325,000 gallons. If we average it, say we use 3.5 acre feet per acre of almonds, we use 1 trillion 1.1 trillion gallons of water per year on almonds. Now, I know we all have to eat, and agriculture is an important part of eating. If we don't grow it, we won't eat it. But I often wonder whether, almonds are really the thing that we really need. So they had another statistic on the USDA National Agriculture Statistics Service, and it showed that cultivating almonds, remember, everybody is not supposed to take long showers, right? Don't take a long shower, wasteful. That's enough water for an individual to take a 10-minute shower each day for 86 million years. Pretty good, huh? I guess, you're going to have a long lifespan if you eat almonds, right? So, and the thing that I thought was interesting was the number 4 product is cattle. I figured that beef would be higher on the list, that they would make more money in beef than they would in almonds, but they make it mainly in almonds. So let's look at what these numbers look like, because they're enormous. You need, when I start thinking about how you get this much water from one place to another, it's just hard to fathom. I mean, here you go, California consumption in the year 2000. I tried to get the numbers for 2013, 14, couldn't find them. And, you go up there and you search on it, and it says total water consumption in 2013. And then you get in there and they start talking about something else. I don't know, it's like no one wants to tell you what it is. But the numbers for 2000 were there. So in 2000, and remember the population is lower in 2000, agriculture used 14 trillion gallons for the year. That's a lot of water, 14 trillion. And urban use was 2.9 trillion, which if you use those numbers, that's 17%, close enough to 20 for me. What do you think? Okay? So I just want you to compare those numbers to Santa Clarita Valley. What do the Santa Clarita Valley consume? When they start talking about these things and they start trying to get you emotional about what you've got to do, you need to start thinking about it. Santa Clarita consumption is 60 million gallons a day. That's 0.00006 trillion gallons. It's a smaller percentage. And then if you go ahead and you say, well, how much they use in a whole year, they use 0.022 trillion gallons. So out of that 2.9 trillion gallons that's used all over California, we use 0.022 trillion gallons. And even though those numbers are astronomical, it shows that we're attacking the smallest user with the largest amount of impact. So while we're in a drought, the governor's plan does very little to mitigate the problem. This is one of those situations, and we see it all the time in every political arena that you see. We have a problem, so our elected officials have to come up and tell us a solution. And it's bluster. They come out and say, do this. I think you can remember when someone said to us, get rid of your salt regenerating water softeners. It'll solve the chloride problem, right? And it didn't. And here, the governor is turning around saying, save 25% of the water you use, and it's not going to save the problem. So to have a real significant impact on our water problem, I think it takes 3 big steps. Agriculture needs to step up and implement more efficient methods of irrigation. And we're not talking about not eating or cutting off their water supply, but we're talking about irrigating in a more efficient way, and they have no intention of doing that today. And unless our governor steps up and says to them, you've got to go do it, it's not going to happen. And we need to establish more water sources. We need to look for additional ways of bringing more water to areas that need them. You know, it's a big difference, I know, between my parents' generation and the generations coming up now. I remember in my parents' generation, if you were a water supplier or an electricity supplier or a gasoline supplier or a food supplier and you weren't producing enough, what do you think they wanted to do? They wanted to produce more. And today, whenever there's a problem like this, what they want to do is they say, well, we don't have enough, so you conserve, and then when you conserve, we'll raise your price. That's exactly what happened. So we need some additional water sources. Now, you know, Santa Barbara is resurrecting their desalination plant. Their desalination plant is built, but they sold the filters out of it, and now they're rebuying filters. They're going to start desalinating water. San Diego has talked about desalinating water. And unfortunately for Santa Clarita, we don't live next to the ocean. So that's probably not our first choice. But we need to make use of our existing facilities. And I want you to just think about this. With this immense amount of water that we're talking about, we're throwing 20 million gallons away every day out of the water treatment plant in the river. Now, here's another little fact that you ought to know. Every single sanitation district in Los Angeles County, except for Santa Clarita and Antelope Valley, takes their effluent out of their water treatment plants and just throws it in the ocean. We throw ours in the river. Antelope Valley throws it out in the desert. Okay? So that's water that just escapes. We just throw it away because, you know what, and when I keep bringing it up to the water purveyors, they say, well, it's too expensive to pipe. Okay? Well, it's not going to be too expensive if we don't have any, right? So that's one way of doing business. The other way is, anybody here used to live in the San Fernando Valley? Do you remember that thing they called, what did they call that, the LA River? And don't you recall in the wintertime when it rained, all the water that just went straight down there out to the ocean, right? So besides everything else, I think that we need to take some bold and ambitious steps. We need to recycle what we have. We need to capture stormwater, besides just telling everybody to conserve. And we need to get everybody to be using some of the latest and greatest technologies. So what do we need to do? Well, I think one of the big things we need to do is speak out about the issue. When I start going out to the blog and I see people saying, oh, if we don't conserve 25%, we won't be able to take a shower. We won't be able to flush our toilets. They need to understand that it's important to save water, but the whole thing is that the methodologies that we have in place today aren't going to solve our problems. So it's helpful to educate your family and your friends and your neighbors so they understand what the issue really is. And then we have to continually go encourage our city, Santa Clarita, our county and our state agencies to do their part in mitigating the issue. Part of that is to talk to the ag industry, to talk about recycling, and to take an active role in delivering and recycling, conserving water. You know, one of the things that we'll talk about a little bit is the sanitation district. One of the alternate brine disposal proposals that's being proposed today is, in actuality, a distillation process called thermal distillation. So it would generate 500,000 gallons a day of pure water, besides getting rid of the brine. So there's lots of things we can do, and of course we shouldn't waste water. There should never be an idea that because this isn't the end-all to end-all that we should waste it. We should do our part to save it, but we also have to pressure all those people in government to do the right thing.